$10 million. That's the annual price tag attached to a player who's caught just 20 passes this season, a player who was once considered a cornerstone of this offense, but now finds himself watching from the sidelines as a younger, more dynamic talent takes over his role. The Chicago Bears are sitting at 9 wins and 3 losses, leading the NFC, playing their best football in years, and yet there's a storm brewing that could result in one of the most significant roster decisions this franchise will make in the offseason. Welcome back to Bears News Fan Report, your go-to source for the latest updates, breaking news, and insider analysis on our beloved Chicago Bears. I'm here to give you the exclusive information that every Bears fan needs to understand about where this team is headed, and today's topic is going to spark some serious debate in the comments section. Let me set the stage for what's happening right now with this organization. We're experiencing something that Bears fans haven't felt in a long time: legitimate hope, real optimism, a 9-3 record that has us sitting at the top of the NFC standings, an explosive offense that's putting up points like we haven't seen in decades. Caleb Williams is developing into exactly what we hoped he'd be when we drafted him first overall. The weapons around him are electric. DJ Moore is making plays. Rome Odunes is emerging as a legitimate threat. The running game is balanced and effective. Everything is clicking in ways that have us dreaming about January football, about playoff runs, about possibilities that seemed impossible just a couple years ago. But here's the reality of building a championship roster in today's NFL. You can't keep everyone. You can't pay everyone. You have to make difficult decisions about which players fit your long-term vision and which players, despite their contributions and despite their history with the organization, might need to move on so you can continue building towards sustained success. And right now, there's a player on this roster whose future in Chicago is becoming increasingly uncertain, a player who's been with us through the rebuilding years, who's been a consistent presence in the locker room, but who might be pricing himself out of a role that no longer matches his production. The tight end position has always been crucial in Chicago. We've had legends at that spot. We've seen how a dominant tight end can change the entire complexion of an offense. And when Kmet was drafted in the second round back in 2020, there was genuine excitement about what he could become. Here was a local kid, played his college ball at Notre Dame, had the size and athleticism to be a matchup problem in the passing game, and showed the blocking ability to contribute in the run game as well. The Bears invested in him, developed him, and for a few years it looked like that investment was paying off. Kmet's 2023 season was particularly impressive. 73 catches for 719 yards and 6 touchdowns. Those are solid numbers for a tight end, the kind of production that makes you believe you have a long-term answer at the position. He was reliable, he was durable, and he seemed to be developing chemistry with whoever was throwing him the football. The Bears rewarded that production with a contract extension, committing $10 million per year to keep him in Chicago. At the time, it seemed like a reasonable investment in a player who was trending upward and who could be a foundational piece of the offense moving forward. But then something changed. The 2024 season saw Kmet's production start to decline. The catches were there, but the explosive plays weren't. The touchdowns became less frequent, and as the Bears began to evaluate their roster and their future needs, questions started to emerge about whether Kmet was truly a difference maker or simply a solid player who benefited from volume in an offense that didn't have many other options. Those questions became even more pronounced when the Bears made a decision in last April's draft that sent shockwaves through the organization and clearly signaled a shift in how they viewed the tight end position. The selection of Colston Loveland in the first round was a statement. When you use a first-round pick on a player at a position where you already have someone making $10 million per year, you're making it very clear that you don't believe your current player is the long-term answer. Loveland came out of Michigan as one of the most complete tight end prospects in recent memory. He could block, he could catch, He had the athleticism to create separation, and he had the kind of competitive fire that immediately endeared him to coaches and teammates. The Bears saw him as a potential game changer, and they weren't wrong. This season has been the Colston Loveland show at tight end for the Bears. He's taken over as the primary receiving option at the position. He's become a legitimate red zone threat, and he's shown the kind of versatility that modern NFL offenses demand from the tight end spot. Meanwhile, Kmet has been relegated to a secondary role, seeing his targets decrease dramatically, watching as the player who was supposed to complement him has instead replaced him. 20 catches for 231 yards and 2 touchdowns through 12 games. Those are backup tight end numbers, not starting tight end numbers, and certainly not numbers that justify a $10 million annual salary. Now, here's where things get really interesting from a roster management perspective. Kmet has 2 years remaining on his contract at that $10 million per year figure. But here's the crucial detail that every Bears fan needs to understand. None of that money is guaranteed. The dead cap hit, if Chicago decides to cut him, would be just $3.2 million. That means the Bears could release Kmet and save almost $7 million in cap space, money that could be reallocated to address other needs, to extend players who are more critical to the team's success, or to pursue free agents who could elevate this roster to championship level. According to recent analysis from ESPN's Dan Graziano, Kmet's contract could be vulnerable this offseason if the Bears are looking for places to find cap relief. Graziano noted that while Kmet has been useful and reliable, and could certainly continue to coexist with Loveland, the financial reality of his contract compared to his current production makes him a potential candidate for either a trade or an outright release. And when you look at the numbers, when you consider the direction this offense is heading, when you think about how resources need to be allocated for a team that's trying to maximize its championship window, it's hard to argue against that logic. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about Cole Kmet being a bad player or a bad teammate. By all accounts, he's been professional, he's been a good locker room presence, and he's contributed to this team during some difficult years. But the NFL is a business, and sentiment can't drive roster decisions when you're trying to build a championship contender. The Bears have to make choices based on value, on production, on fit within the offensive system, and on how every dollar of cap space can be maximized to improve the roster. And right now, paying $10 million per year for a tight end who's playing a backup role doesn't make strategic sense. The other factor to consider is Caleb Williams and his development. Our franchise quarterback is in his second year, and everything we do from a roster construction standpoint needs to be viewed through the lens of maximizing his potential and surrounding him with the right weapons. Williams has shown a clear preference for throwing to certain targets. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Colston Loveland have emerged as his go-to options. The chemistry with Kmet just hasn't been there this season, and that's not necessarily anyone's fault, but it is reality. When your quarterback doesn't naturally gravitate toward a player who's making significant money, that's a problem that needs to be addressed. So what are the realistic options for the Bears this offseason? There are essentially 3 scenarios. First, they could keep Kmet and run it back with him as the number 2 tight end behind Loveland. This maintains depth at the position and keeps a veteran presence in the room, but it also means committing $10 million to a backup role, which is difficult to justify from a cap management standpoint. Second, they could attempt to trade Kmet to a team that needs tight end help and believes they can get more production from him in a different offensive system. The return probably wouldn't be significant, maybe a mid-round draft pick, but it would clear the salary off the books and give Kmet a chance to start elsewhere. Third, they could simply release him, take the $3.2 million dead cap hit, and use the savings to address other roster needs. My gut tells me that option 3 is the most likely outcome. The trade market for tight ends making $10 million per year isn't robust. especially for a player whose production has declined over the past 2 seasons. Teams that need tight end help will likely look to the draft or to free agents who might come at a lower cost. Releasing Kmet allows the Bears to move on cleanly, gives him the opportunity to find a better situation elsewhere, and provides Chicago with financial flexibility to continue building around Caleb Williams and the young core that's driving this resurgence. The timing of this decision is also important. The Bears are in the middle of their best season in years, but we're also realistic about where we are in the building process. This isn't a finished product. There are still holes on the roster, still areas that need to be upgraded, still moves that need to be made to transform us from a good team into a great team. Every dollar of cap space matters when you're trying to make those upgrades. And if releasing Kmet frees up $7 million that can be used to sign a difference maker on defense or to extend one of our own key players, then it's a move that has to be seriously considered. I also think about what this means for Kmet personally. He's 26 years old, still in his prime years for a tight end, and he deserves the opportunity to be in a situation where he can contribute at a high level. Staying in Chicago as a backup making $10 million might be financially comfortable, but it's not going to advance his career or give him the chance to showcase what he can still do. A fresh start with a team that sees him as a starter and builds their offense around utilizing his skills might be the best thing for everyone involved. Here's my final take on this situation. Cole Kmet has been a good soldier for the Chicago Bears during some challenging years, and he deserves credit for his professionalism and his contributions. But the reality of modern NFL roster construction is that you can't afford to pay backup-level production at starter-level prices, especially when you have a young franchise quarterback who needs to be surrounded with the right pieces. The emergence of Colston Loveland has made Kmet expendable, and the financial structure of his contract makes him a logical candidate for release this offseason. It's not personal, it's business, and it's the kind of tough decision that championship organizations have to make. Now I want to hear from you, Bears fans. Do you think the team should keep Cole Kmet for another year, or is it time to move on? Would you rather see them try to trade him or just release him outright? And how would you use that $7 million in cap savings to improve this roster? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely want to know how the Bears faithful feels about this potential move. If you want to stay on top of all the latest Bears news, roster moves, free agency updates, and in-depth analysis of every decision this organization makes, make sure you're subscribed to Bears News Fan Report. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Share this content with your fellow Bears fans who need to understand what might be coming this offseason. Let's build this community together and support our team through every decision, every game, every step of this journey back to relevance. The Chicago Bears are building something special, and sometimes building requires making tough choices about players who've been part of the journey. Bear down.